When we decide to lose weight, our instinct is to move faster. We want the fastest results, so we adopt the most aggressive strategies. We cut calories drastically. We wake up at 5 a.m. to run. We drink strong stimulants to force our energy levels up. We try to punish the fat off our bodies. But when it comes to visceral fat, the dangerous, hardened tissue wrapped around your organs, speed is often the enemy. There is a biological paradox that frustrates millions of people. The harder you push your body, the more stubborn your belly fat becomes. You might lose weight in your face, your legs might get thinner, but the midsection remains locked. This happens because you are fighting a hormonal war with a calculator. You are trying to use calories in, calories out to solve a problem that is fundamentally driven by cortisol. The fastest way to shrink visceral fat is not to run faster. It is to signal safety to your nervous system. It is to chemically convince your biology that the war is over. If you are stuck, if you are doing the cardio and eating the salads but the waistline isn't moving, this video is the missing manual. Today, we are going to decode the specific relationship between the HPA axis and your belly button. We will explain why your belly fat acts like a cortisol magnet, and we will lay out the exact protocol to lower your stress hormones so the fat can finally leave the bunker. This is not about relaxation techniques or burning incense. This is about metabolic engineering. Most fitness advice ignores the hormonal environment. Here at Chill Fit Mode, we prioritize it. We believe that physiology dictates shape. If you want to stop fighting your body and start working with its ancient programming, make sure you are subscribed, join the tribe, and let's drop the cortisol. To understand why slowing down is actually the fastest way to lose this specific fat, we must look at the anatomy of the fat cell itself. Not all fat is created equal. The fat on your hips or thighs is what we call passive storage. It waits for a caloric deficit to be burned. But visceral fat is different. It is biologically active. Research shows that visceral fat cells have up to 4 times more glucocorticoid receptors than subcutaneous fat. Think of these receptors as baseball mitts. They are waiting to catch cortisol circulating in your blood. When you are stressed, whether from a bad boss, lack of sleep, or excessive exercise, your adrenal glands flood your system with cortisol. Because your belly fat has more mitts than your legs, it catches more of this hormone. Once cortisol docks onto these receptors, it activates a specific enzyme called Lipoprotein Lipase, or LPL. This enzyme is the fat storage switch. It takes triglycerides from your bloodstream and locks them into the fat cell. So, when cortisol is high, you are chemically programmed to store fat specifically in the abdominal cavity. But it gets worse. Cortisol also shuts down the fat-burning enzyme in your muscle tissue. This creates the skinny fat look. Your arms and legs wither away because the muscle is being broken down for fuel, while your belly grows because it is hoarding the energy. This is a survival mechanism. In the wild, stress meant a long winter or a famine. Storing fat near the vital organs was the most efficient way to keep you alive. Your body is not trying to make you look bad at the beach. It is trying to save you from a threat. The problem is that modern dieting mimics this threat. When you cut calories too low and train too hard, you spike cortisol. You tell your body, we are starving and we are being chased. The body responds by locking the belly fat bunker even tighter. So, the fastest way to shrink this fat is to do the opposite of what the industry tells you. You must lower the alarm. You must drop cortisol to baseline. Only then will the receptors unlock the doors. Here is the scientific protocol to drop cortisol and force visceral fat loss. Phase 1. The caffeine timing hack. Most people start their day with a massive spike in cortisol. They wake up, and within 10 minutes, they pour coffee into an empty stomach. Biologically, your cortisol is already naturally high in the morning to wake you up. This is the cortisol awakening response. When you add caffeine, a potent stimulant, on top of this natural spike, you hyper-redline the engine. You create a state of hyper-arousal that lasts for hours. This chronic morning stress signal keeps the LPL enzyme active in your belly all day long. The fix is simple but profound. Wait 90 minutes after waking up before you consume caffeine. By waiting 90 minutes, you allow the natural cortisol wave to peak and begin to come down. You also allow a molecule called adenosine to clear from your brain naturally. When you introduce caffeine at this later point, it acts as a gentle energy booster, not a stress bomb. You get the focus without the fat storage signal. Phase 2. The anti-cardio movement. If you go to a gym, you see people running on treadmills for 45 minutes, checking their heart rate, sweating, and looking miserable. They are burning calories, yes, but they are also spiking cortisol. Prolonged medium-intensity cardio is perceived by the body as a stressor. It mimics the stress of a long hunt or a migration. If you already have high life stress, adding running stress just pours water into an overflowing sink. To shrink visceral fat fast, we need movement that burns energy without spiking cortisol. We need walking, specifically Zone 1 or low Zone 2 walking. Walking is unique. It increases blood flow and caloric expenditure, but it lowers cortisol. It engages the optical flow mechanism. When your eyes see the landscape moving past you, it quiets the amygdala, the brain's fear center. The protocol is not to run a marathon. It is to walk for 3 to 5 kilometers a day, preferably in nature or at least away from screens. This sends a safety signal to the brain. It tells the body, we are moving, we are healthy, but we are not running for our lives. When the brain receives this signal, it lowers the defenses. It allows the visceral fat to be oxidized. Phase 3. The nutrient shield. There are specific nutrients that act as cortisol blockers. In a perfect world, we wouldn't need them, but in a high-stress modern environment, they are biochemical weapons. The first is phosphatidylserine. This is a phospholipid found in cell membranes. Studies have shown that supplementing with phosphatidylserine can blunt the cortisol response to physical and mental stress. It acts like a buffer. Taking 300 to 600 milligrams helps lower the evening cortisol spike that prevents deep sleep. The second is omega-3 fatty acids. Inflammation stimulates cortisol. If your body is inflamed from processed food, your adrenals pump out cortisol as an anti-inflammatory drug. By consuming high doses of omega-3s from fish oil or algae, you resolve the inflammation at the source. You remove the need for the cortisol. The third is magnesium. We have discussed this before, but it bears repeating. Magnesium deficiency effectively leaves the nervous system in a stuck-on position. Magnesium binds to GABA receptors to calm the system down. Without it, you cannot drop cortisol efficiently. Phase 4. The breath reset. We breathe 20,000 times a day. Most of us breathe predominantly into our chest, taking shallow, rapid breaths. This breathing pattern essentially hacks your own nervous system into a panic state. It activates the sympathetic nervous system. It keeps the fat storage switch turned on. To reverse this quickly, we use the physiological sigh. This is a pattern discovered by neuroscientists that manually resets the stress barometer. It is simple. 2 inhales through the nose, followed by 1 long, extended exhale through the mouth. The double inhale pops open the alveoli in the lungs. The long exhale activates the vagus nerve. Doing this for just 60 seconds drops heart rate and lowers circulating cortisol almost instantly. It is the fastest way to tell your visceral fat that the emergency is over. Do this before you eat. Do this when you are stuck in traffic. Do this before bed. You might be thinking, walking and breathing? That sounds too slow. I want to lose fat now. But you have to understand the biology of speed. If you try to force the body with starvation and sprinting, you might lose weight on the scale for 2 weeks, but that weight will be water and muscle. Your body will defend the visceral fat because it thinks it needs it for the war you are simulating. Then you will crash. Your metabolism will slow down and you will gain the fat back. That is the slow way. That is the painful way. The truly fast way is to remove the blockage. When you drop cortisol, you remove the chemical lock on your adipose tissue. You restore insulin sensitivity. You preserve muscle mass. When the body feels safe, it wants to be lean. It has no use for a heavy, inflammatory bunker of fat if there is no threat. So stop punishing yourself. Stop treating your body like an enemy that needs to be beaten into submission. Wait for your coffee. Walk instead of running. Nourish your cells with omega-3s and breathe deeply. You will be shocked at how quickly the body responds when you finally speak its language. The fastest way to the finish line is to take your foot off the brake. I'll see you in the next one.